Yo, it's Guido coming at you with a Tactics Talk. Welcome back and thanks for tuning in. On this episode, we have Nona Manadus from Clan HBG and his 50 TP, Polish Tier 9 heavy tank. Spawned into whatever this place is called, Mannerheim Line. Spawned into the southwest spawn and headed over to the east. Taking shots as he goes down to the heavy brawling area. And he actually has a pretty good crowd coming with him. This is going to be an interesting battle. Goes right down to the wire. But Nona is taking a pretty quick line straight down. Looks like he might be trying to get down to the lower area down there. And that can be won if you get enough tanks in there. But pretty quickly, it is very apparent that they've sent quite a few tanks. The 277, there's a T10, the 257, there's an Emil, there's more guys up top. Nona comes up here, looks like he wants to push down in, trying to decide where to take some shots. Gets one and then goes, you know what, that is not going to work. So what we're going to talk about is tactical retreats. He took a pretty good line. That's a good spot to go, but usually the northeast spawn will win. If you can challenge it with enough tanks and win it, it's pretty easy to win the game from there. But as you can see, they have taken a lot of the red tanks down there, and now they have that hold down spot. And guess what else is happening here? There's no artillery. That ramp is very bad if there's 2 or 3 artillery. One, it's okay, you can work it. But if there are more than one, you really don't want to be there because they'll just whittle you down. But there's not any in this game. And Nona looked at this and said, you know what, I'm just going to actually tactically retreat completely out of here because we've got an E75, a 705, a poorly positioned 251B, and we're just in big trouble right here. So the tactical retreat in this game, sometimes you're going to have to sacrifice some positioning and maybe even some hit points to get out of a bad spot. Had he stayed there, he'd have been relying on a lot of turret snaps and things like that. So he actually backs out of this thing, loses quite a bit of hit points, but he gets away. The other thing that's happening is, fortunately for him in the north, there's enough of his tanks up there keeping those busy that they're not shooting him in the back. So if there was nothing going on in the north, probably Nona has a quick game, gets shot in the back right here. But as there is no artillery, the north is busy with the enemy tanks, and the enemy tanks are busy with the green tanks. And Nona has the opportunity to kind of hang out here. You can notice he's looking back going, man, this is not a great spot right here. As long as I'm spotted, they may have shots. FV is about dead. You can see that the 75 is dead. The 705A is about dead. And it's just a bad position to sit right there. The enemy tanks are hull down, and all you can do is angle. Plus, there's so many of them. You shoot once, 3 of them are going to pop up and get shots at you. So now the enemy team is going to make kind of a critical mistake right here that most teams do when they win really quickly over on that ramp. They're going to start pushing in, and as you'll notice, we've got a WT and a Grill 15 back there. Plus, Nona has fallen back to a good spot to hold them and spot them. Tortoise is in there. They've taken some pretty good hit points off. I'm going to take a shot here. Like one of my palsy shots right there, Nona. Nicely done, though. Another 731, and the 277 actually hits him on the run. Unfortunately, the armor holds up. So Nona will pull back a little bit more, and that's a problem. The 277's got him in a bit of a crossfire. If he moves up to take shots on the guys straight off to his left, this 277 may come up. But the 277 also has the problem of attempting to poke with 2 relatively large TDs in the back right there, and there he goes. The Grill nukes that dude, and that takes care of that little crossfire problem. So Nona's going to come down here and start looking for spots for his 2 TDs. And really, he's just in a holding pattern right here. It's 5-7. His team has won the north. That's a good thing because it relieves a little bit of the pressure potentially. The question is, how many of all those tanks down there on that ramp have turned around to go help up at the cap? Unfortunately, Nona's team attempts to push in there and doesn't do a really good job. Looks like the FV and the other tank that are up there are going to kind of clean them up. But Nona right now is just holding this spot, trying to get some shots for these TDs. If one of these guys makes a mistake, then he'll try to punish them. Nice turret on this tank, so it's a good tank for doing this. Decent depression, not amazing, but decent. So he's just looking for potentially a shot. And here they all come, stacking up. And this really is one of the big mistakes that teams will make on this map. They simply should have turned around and ignored that ramp. Maybe a person or 2 stays, because usually somebody will. The rest of them should have hutted right back up the way they came. This is unfortunate. This guy lives through this thing. Right into the side. A little too low, or it looks like armor not penetrated. Should have hutted right back up the road they came from and cleaned up the guys up at cap. Because really the Grill and the WT more than likely aren't going to do anything. It would be unusual if Nona was able to push and do a whole bunch. And even if they left a couple tanks, they'd have been able to hold these guys. The Tortoise comes in, and this is going to help. The Tortoise is going to help break down this flank over here. It's relatively even at 6 to 7. But Nona only has about 2 shots to give. Some of the bigger alpha tanks might be able to take him out with 1. So he does have to be careful about exposing himself. The Tortoise is going to come in there. Unfortunately, the 430U killed himself, and now you're only dealing with a Skoda and a Patton, and the FV is still alive. Able, I think, one-shot probably both those guys. Tortoise takes a bit of a shot right there, and unfortunately that 257 is the thorn in the side. They're unable to really push in there and get organized as long as that guy is there waiting to pop out. And he's probably just looking for an opportunity to come out and get a shot, get a free shot on somebody. He'll get one if, like, the Tortoise moves too far forward, and looks like he's thinking about it right there. The 103 is trying to get in here as well. And you can see Nona's concerned about the 257, kind of watching what that guy's doing over there. There he is. He's lit. He only got 62 hit points. The Tortoise now sees him. I don't know if the Tortoise didn't realize he was there. Now he's in a bit of a pickle because he's got to turn right and left, trying to hold on to the guys to his left and then worrying about the 257. Probably, Nona, you needed to push in there and make something happen to try to help that Tortoise. He's losing some hit points doing this. And down he goes finally. The Tortoise gets a piece of him. And you're able to push forward. Meanwhile, up in the north, the Patton and the Skoda can't figure out the FV, and the question is, where did the Emil and the other Tortoise go? The 103 and the 75 are here. The 1390 as well has disappeared, unknown where he's gone off to. The Tortoise is having a good time with this Porty 75. Unlucky here. Looks like he went into the upper plate, potentially. So there's the Emil. He's just reappeared. He actually turned around. So of all those tanks down there, it looks like the Emil and the 1390 went back. And now we are at 11 to 11. And this is now a tricky pickle for you guys to try to worry about. Now you're trying to push into their hard camp position. There's the Tortoise. He actually drove up and around as well, so he's up on the corner. The WT has not left basically the same spot he started in. I think you're looking at the wall of the rocks right there, so I don't think you're going to get a light. Eventually, the WT, I believe, is going to move up. Good shot there. See the 4005 try to poke. And now the 1390 looks like he's breaking into the backfield. Slight lead by your team, but the problem is the 1390 is back there, and that poor Patton is really exposed. Now he's getting hit by the 1390. God knows where the Emil is. There's a low spot to come around right there. The FV is hiding behind the rocks, but proxy lighting the M48. The M48 has no real good options, and now the 1390's moved off and disappeared. And there's the Emil that comes driving right up behind the M48 and takes him down. And now we've got a 3x3. I would give their team a slight advantage based on the auto-loading ML2, the hammer blow that the 4005 can give, and the 1390's mobility and view range. You guys are in a bit of a pickle right here. 103 is trying to get some shots on that guy. And still the WT has not done much of anything but sit in the same spot looking for shots. So the decision here now is, do we kind of hang out? We still have 6 minutes. Do we wait for them to make a mistake? It would be nice to track down the 1390 and get rid of him. That would make things much easier. It looks like Nona's going to come around here. We're going to speed this thing up. Oh, there he is. The 1390 has made his appearance. And unfortunately, he puts himself right in the line of sight of the WT and dies. Now we've got to go peel 2 guys out of a hard position. Probably the Emil-2 has moved around to the back side. The FV has not gone anywhere, as to be expected. That's pretty much where I would stay with him. You're just hoping to get a shot on somebody, survive long enough to reload, and do it again. WT goes back up to the camping spot, if you can believe it. Back up to the camping spot and takes down the FV. Takes down the FV. And watch this shot. Alright, so RNG ended it at the end of the day. 3,000 damage, 1,094 assist. But a nice job of realizing, especially early on there, as we talked about, that the initial positioning decision was not going to work. This is one of those maps where you do have to be dynamic about that, especially from the southwest spawn. If you're trying to go down there and you get a good push, you can really clean guys up down there. However, if it's going bad, you have got to get out, and it's hard to get out. It really is. The good news is you didn't take too much damage in the side from the guys on the upper road. Then he just decided to keep falling back because I think he looked at it and said, all right, there's only 3 of us and there's 6 or 7 of them. Eventually we're going to lose this fight. So I'm going to actually fall back 1 more and hopefully buy a little bit more time for my team and my TDs. I see what's going on up in the north. Maybe they can win and relieve some of the pressure down here in the south. and eventually we'll pull it out. So this was a well-played game, I thought, on both teams' part, minus the fact that the red team pushed a little too hard in the south once they won that road. Be careful about that. I see that happen a lot on this map. They win real fast down there from the northeast spawn, and then they try to cross that big open area, and it's just not worth it. Just fall back. The campers will camp. In general, they'll stay where they are unless they're forced to move. And if you bring them into the game by approaching their gun, then they will shoot you. If you just leave them to camp, then they'll probably buy yourself a little bit of time that they're out of the game, if not a lot of time. Notice the WT never moved. Now, he did kill the FV, so good on him for repositioning and getting some high ground where he had a shot on that guy. But he probably could have done a lot more movement in their end game. Anyway, Nona, thanks for sending that in. I do appreciate it. For everybody else, we will see you.